Hi everyone and welcome back to the Casual Watch Review channel. This week we're reviewing a Casio Edifice, and this is probably the first Edifice I've reviewed on the channel since one of my very early videos way back when I started the channel, but I had to review this one because I think this is an incredible value for money, as long as you can get over the size of course. I have to admit though, I am a bit late to the game with this one, and honestly I didn't know this watch existed until I saw a review over on Watch Chris's YouTube channel. And in fact, this particular watch did belong to Watch Chris, so thank you very much for providing it to me. If you're not familiar with the Watch Chris YouTube channel, he does an excellent job of reviewing watches all across the price spectrum. Now on Chris's review, he did call this a Tissot PRX killer. I'm not sure I totally agree with that. I was lucky enough to borrow a PRX. What I'll do is I will compare the two together. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel and look out for that video. This Casio's reference is the EFB108D 1AVCR. And like Omega, Casio love their really long model names. There have been similar Edifice models to this. This model here is similar but also has the addition of screws. I personally prefer this model. I think it looks more contemporary. This watch is typically visually compared to some much more expensive watches like the Royal Oak and the Tissot PRX, but I think you can see the inspiration from a few models, even including Rolex Oyster Quartz and the recently released Bremont, all significantly more expensive than this watch at $99 currently on Amazon. As Watch Chris pointed out in his review, for some reason Amazon have the case listed as 48mm. It's not that large, but it isn't small either. Here you can see it on my 7.2-inch wrist, but let's look at the actual case measurements. The case dimensions are 45mm without the crown, a 47.5 lug to lug, but with male end links. Yes, they look like they're female ones, but they don't articulate at the lugs. More on that later. The way that the lugs are, it wears more like a 52mm watch. And finally on the measurements, the watch has a thickness of only 8.7mm, and impressively also for this price, it features 100 meters water resistance and a sapphire crystal. The sapphire is a great addition, but it's also slightly confusing. I'm not quite sure how Casio decide which watch models get sapphire or not. For example, you'd have to pay well over $1,000 typically to have sapphire on a G-Shock, but here they've included it on a $100 watch. Or $139, which is their MSRP. Not that I'm complaining though, because that's a massive bonus for this watch. And a big pat on the back for Casio, because you'd never see sapphire on a Seiko anywhere near this price. The movement is quartz, but it's nothing fancy. It doesn't have solar charging, for example. This watch could really be your only watch, as it can easily be worn formally or casually, and with a water resistance of 100 meters, you'd have no issues swimming in it. But just to note, the crown is not screwed down. The thickness of this watch, or should I say thinness, at only 8.7mm means that even though the case size is larger, it's a very wearable size. It's very comfortable and light at only 133 grams. If you have wrists of 6.5 inches or larger, it should wear well with little overhang of those end links. The dial is fantastic and a real credit to Casio. It looks black in most photos, but what is hard to capture is the brushing. It really plays with the light. Take a look at just how well it holds up under a macro lens here. You can see just how well the brushing has been done. The addition of applied indices with both brushed and polishing finishing really makes this watch look far more expensive than it actually is. The date is also clear and well positioned. My only gripe is I think they should have had Casio on the dial. The Edifice branding looks a bit out of place on such a classy designed watch. It would have been nice to have an applied Casio logo, for example. The hands are also a highlight and look like they belong on a much more expensive watch. The red on the second hand is a great pop of colour, and thankfully they didn't use any red text on the dial to try and tie the hand in. They've just left it to be that striking red second hand, and I think it looks fantastic. Now what you've come for, let's talk about the case and bracelet, and honestly they've done a fantastic job here. The case features brushing and polishing on the bezel. There's high polishing on the sides, although the corners are a lot softer than what you would see on a more expensive watch. The watch has a bling factor for sure. All the different finishings that have been applied, the polishing and the brushing really capture and play with the light. The brushing is well applied and all travels in the same direction. The crown is easy to use and has the Edifice logo applied to it. The crown guards match the case on the other side and give the watch a symmetrical look, and the overall profile of the case is well balanced and makes it very easy to wear on the wrist, partly due to how thin it is. The bracelet is also well machined and very comfortable to wear with plenty of adjustments. It uses a pin system so it can easily be adjusted with a tool available on Amazon. The watch does use male end links, even though they look like they articulate at the lugs, and those are traditionally referred to as female end links. They actually don't move at the lugs. The lug width is listed as 24mm, but in reality it's more like 11mm because it attaches to the case on that section. I would just assume that you can't swap out the bracelet on this watch. You're probably not going to find another strap to replace it with unless you had one custom made. The only slight letdown with the bracelet is the clasp. It's the only thing that doesn't feel premium like the rest of the watch. I would have happily paid $50 more to get a much better clasp on here, and if they can make this overall watch for $100, just imagine what they could do with an extra $50 spent on the clasp. That's not to say the clasp isn't highly functional. Off the wrist, it's very jangly. When it's worn on the wrist, you don't experience that jangle at all, really. The way the deployment is with the push buttons makes it feel very secure on the wrist, and it is comfortable. And not to mention, it has those 4 positions of micro adjustment to really get that perfect fit. Let's discuss the lume for a second, and only for a second because it's not great on this watch, with it only applied to the hands, and it's a fairly thin coating. I actually thought there was lume just above the indices, but there's only lume on the hands. So if you need a watch where you can view it for long periods of time at night or in the dark, then there might be better options elsewhere. This watch is currently available for around $100 on Amazon, and I'll leave an affiliate link in the description down below. A great overall watch. The only improvements could be the clasp and maybe the addition of some extra lume. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below about this watch. And then like and subscribe for the follow-up where I'll compare it against the PRX. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a quick thumbs up. It really does help out the channel. And if you really love this video and want to help the channel out, you can use the new super thanks feature just below the video. Really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time on Casual Watch Reviews.